Hello, I'm Mark Walker. I've just been chairing the July meeting of the Brighton Hove Community Reporters, and just a very brief report on what we did there. Really brilliant meeting. As we said at the end, what we'll try and do next time is not try and put two really interesting talks on at the same time. We had a conversation and discussion about what we think community reporters could be learning from the current furore around the news of the world and News Corp, and whether journalists were right to have behaved the way they did, what we find acceptable. Ended up talking about a local newsletter, community newsletter, the Brighton Bulletin, the editor and main contributor of which was in the room, and trying to decide whether she should tell a story about a young man in the local neighbourhood who's widely known to have stolen a laptop from the school in the area, that the laptop was for somebody with special education needs, that the money that paid for it was raised by local parents and in the school specifically for that purpose, that everybody knows that he did it, but that as far as they're concerned the police have done nothing to actually punish him. And sort of just an excellent discussion about the ethics of that and the rightness and wrongness of revealing that to the general public through the local community newsletter. One of the reasons it was really good is because someone who comes to our meetings is the head of media relations for Sussex Police, Nick Cloak, who's excellent in terms of his support for the community reporters group. He's excellent because he's willing to listen to what people are saying as stories, and then he's got a very clear picture of what he thinks the strategy is for the police, which he's leading in terms of engagement. It's very clear to him that in olden times, as well as a clip around the ear roll from the Boys in Blue, that they would keep the Argus and the BBC local BBC stations happy, and that was pretty much their PR done, and that what they need to do now is be much closer to community news reporters, community newsletters, bloggers, Twitterers, and other people in the community, and that's much harder. And as an engagement process, it means they can't play a PR game. They have to be much more open about what they're doing and engage with people in their communities on a much more transparent basis. And that's tough. That's hard work for police to do. So Michelle from Brighton Bulletin and Nick from the police had a very interesting conversation. A load of other topics came up along the way to do with ethics and whose decision it is to publish stories, and what's the parallel with decisions that are taken within community newsletters or blogs, and what responsibility do people have. So we switched from that to what apparently seemed to be a very different topic, cyber mummies. One of the community reporters, Claire, is cyber mummy. She's which is a conference actually she went to, but she's been blogging as a mum called Contented Mummy for a number of years, and she talked about the cyber mummy conference. I have to say it sounded like a classic case of the PR people getting in on a network that they could see had money in it, both in terms of parents themselves and brands trying to reach parents, and also using their influence and spending time and effort to get people to say nice things about them on their blogs, which would then transfer into the networks that they're part of, and recognising this was a nice middle-class network that would be rich pickings in terms of all sorts of things. And Claire's story started with a picture of the goodie bags that she'd brought back, 5 of them, rammed full of stuff. Wine, food, drink, clothes, a whole sort of stuff. And the main thing I took away, I think, was a picture of a whole load of well-meaning, very committed individual women writing stories about what they meant in their life, and then a very classic old-fashioned PR industry rubbing its hands and getting its clients' goods in front of a very influential group of people. So. As I say, 2 great topics, probably too much to cram in. We took 3.5 hours, and we're meant to be taking 2. So you can tell, it took 3 hours. So you can tell it was a popular meeting. Next meeting, which will be in September, we'll miss out August. We're definitely going to pick up on this ethics stuff. We really want to talk to the NUJ about what ethics mean to a professional journalist, and how it's not a legal issue, that the phone hacking isn't illegal in a lot of cases. It's unethical, or that it's considered unacceptable by the public, and that means that editors have to be careful to decide not just on a legal basis whether to publish a story, but also on an ethical basis. And the Millie Downer story, shows us that whilst actually what they did was pretty much legal. Interestingly, Nick Cloak was involved directly in the police side of that story, although he didn't reveal anything really about that, but he certainly confirmed some of the questions people had about it. That the mistake that the News of the World made was not a legal one. They'd done other things that were equally dubious legally. It was when they crossed an ethical line that their audience, that their readership had defined. That was the time they were in trouble, and that's a very subjective thing. And so we had a lot of conversations about who's in charge of that decision, where does the line lie. We had, it's acceptable to tap the phones of journalists. It's unacceptable to tap the phones of Millie Dowler, a murder victim. But what's in between that is very grey, and community reporters may find themselves in exactly the same position, trying to patrol that same grey area, and wondering what to do about it. So I think that's an area we're going to explore more. The cyber blogging, the blogging mummies certainly brought up all sorts of technical stuff. People didn't know what search engine optimization is, and there's lots of stuff we could do about that would be very straightforward in terms of training and learning. And there's also loads